bordering on black eyes. He shifted his gaze, soaking in her delicate features, full red lips, and shoulder-length raven hair before doing a sweep of her petite body, clad in all black. Her tank top left her arms bare, which meant he didn't miss her tattoos. A painstakingly detailed angel on her left forearm, a cluster of stars on her right biceps, and a ring of roses around her left wrist. The tats were surprisingly feminine and insanely sexy, and he suddenly had the craziest urge to strip her naked and find out if she had more ink beneath her tight top and skinny jeans. Man, it had been a long time since he'd experienced total lust overload. He encountered attractive women all the frickin' time, but this tiny pixie of a woman was more than attractive. The sexy combo of fragility and badassness hardened his cock, and he shifted his position so that the counter hid his lower body better. When he realized she still hadn't spoken, he raised his voice over the pounding dance beat reverberating through the main floor. "What'll it be?" She snapped out of whatever trance she'd fallen into, but still looked startled. A tad wary, too, but he had to be imagining it. 3 margaritas and a Coke, she replied after another long pause. "Coming right up." It was difficult to tear his gaze off her, but he forced himself to act professional, sliding to the other end of the counter to prepare her drinks. He jiggled the stainless steel margarita shaker more vigorously than necessary, a sense of nervous energy overtaking him. Fuck. He wanted to talk to her, find out her name, convince her to go home with him. And wasn't that a mind-boggler? He spent most nights turning down offers for sex, and all of a sudden he was imagining screwing a complete stranger? His friends would die of shock if they could read his thoughts right now. Gage and Reed viewed him as Mr. Nice Guy, the man who held doors open for his dates and didn't sleep with a girl until they'd been seeing each other for a proper amount of time. The guy who offered women his shoulder to cry on and bought them flowers for every damn occasion. But he supposed they had every right to see him as the nicest guy on the planet. It was the image he tried to project most of the time, the label he'd been striving his entire life to live up to. Christ, if people only knew. How hard he worked to be that polite, dependable guy everyone could rely on. How badly he fought to suppress the wild urges that arose more often than not. How frustrating it was to dutifully play the part of prodigal son, good friend, reliable boyfriend. He didn't always succeed, though. Sometimes the need to truly let go couldn't be ignored. He had to ease it, and in the past, he'd used fighting to do that. He'd heard that people frequently used sex or violence as an outlet for release, as a way to feel alive, and he couldn't deny that his days as an MMA fighter had certainly soothed the darker, restless part of himself that he usually hid from the world. Sex, on the other hand, didn't achieve the same result. It had always been more intimate for him, tangled up with love and relationships and all that emotional stuff. But for some strange reason, the raven-haired woman at the counter had unleashed his carnal, reckless urges, because suddenly the idea of going home with a stranger had become very, very appealing. "You gonna take those over to the customer, or just keep staring at them?" His head jerked at Sue's teasing voice. Ignoring his aching cock, he glanced down, realizing that the drinks he'd poured were now sitting on the bar top waiting to be delivered. "Nah, I've got it. Just spaced out for a second." He plastered on a smile, then carried the drinks over to where the woman was waiting. And staring. Staring hard, in fact, and her plump lips were puckered in the tiniest of frowns. Unease washed over him, but he tried to ignore it. 3 margaritas and 1 Coke, he announced. She gave a polite smile in return. Very, very polite. So polite it was clearly forced, and his wariness only heightened. "Thanks," she said tightly. "How much do I owe you?" $18. His gaze stayed on her as she dug around in her purse for her wallet. Her body language was as stiff as her voice, a clear indication that she was ticked off about something. "Here, keep the change." She dropped a 20 on the counter, then lifted her head and noticed